Good afternoon, everyone. Hope all is well. So, we are going to be going live with Jess Weeks Interiors, who are London based interior designers who do a lot of London. They go and do a lot of refurbishments along the London property market. And we've got Jess Weeks here. So let's just send out invite. Super. Anyone got any questions for interior designing? Do post them on here so Jess can answer them.
Hi,
Hey Jess, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you
Oh,
on board.
thank you
Uh,
for having me.
Discussing your knowledge on what you do. Everyone knows that you're an interior designer, doing high-end London properties, UK properties. So it's good to have you here to share that knowledge and share the positivity. People are looking for a different professional career approach to designing, and this is where you can help. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah. I'm losing you a little bit there, but I'm getting the gist of it. Yeah.
Can you hear me well? Can you see me well?
Yeah, I've got you back now. That's better. Yeah, carry on.
Super. So, I was just saying that it's a pleasure to have you on board to share that knowledge with us about what you do. So, before we get the conversation going, if you can introduce yourself as to who you are and what you do, and then we can go get going.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you introduced me already, interior designer. I do work primarily in London, but also we've got a Wiltshire. We're based in Wiltshire. So we work on country residences. At the moment, we've got a lot of property in London, so that's why we're primarily in London. But we've got properties in Spain that we work on. We've worked on French properties. So we're very lucky that we've been able to work on a huge calibre of different projects.
So, you look at properties worldwide in terms of getting
Yeah.
interior designing done on them. So, did you always think that you wanted to be an interior designer, or did you have other aspirations in mind when you were growing up? I mean, did you think of becoming a doctor or a
Yeah, question.
lawyer or an
Very
architect,
good
you know?
question. Yeah. Well, actually, law is what I originally wanted to train in.
Okay.
When I was younger, I had very strong viewpoints and I wanted to push my view out there and argue my grounds. It soon made me realize I was actually criminal law that I wanted to study in. And I
Wow.
soon realized that actually it wasn't the area. It was too cutthroat. I saw some things that you would never want anybody to see. You wouldn't want your children to see. And I ended up wanting to take everybody home with me and look after them, and it just was not the right industry for me at all. But my parents were in property development,
Okay.
and we had lived, oh my gosh, by the time I was 14, I must have lived, no, by the time I was 13, I'd lived in 14 houses. So we
Wow.
moved every year. So I knew property building wise from the ground up. I understood footing the age of about 12. So it's what I knew.
Should I
And
call
of
that
course,
lucky?
when you're in a
Should,
career crisis,
should I call that
yeah,
lucky
you
or
could
should
call
I
it
call that
lucky.
a punishment?
But I thought it was a pun to end up doing with my life when I decided I wasn't going to study law. I thought, well, the last thing I'm going to do is go into property. I mean, Jesus,
Yeah.
that's what my parents did. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know what to do. So I went into retail and I opened cafes. I did everything I could to avoid getting into property, but it called for me. It's what I knew, it's what I loved. I had this amazing talent where I could just walk into a room, take in every corner of the room, and I could see where new entrances could go. I could see where the doors should go. And I didn't just look at the room for what it was. I walked, no matter what house it was, I'd walk in and I'd feel it differently and I could see the potential, and therefore I couldn't ignore it. It's what I had to do, and I've never looked back. It's the best decision I ever made.
So you went into law and then you didn't like all of the stuff that was going on around that. So you actually studied at university, you did your criminal law, and that's
No, I
what,
didn't get that far.
okay.
I quit really in year one. I knew
Okay.
straight off it wasn't for me.
So you mentioned that you had this property background. Your parents were into property development and everything, and that's what made you realize that this is where you want to be, and this is what you want to do.
That I couldn't ignore it any longer. It was calling for me.
Did you have the realization as soon as you got in that there's a whole load of competition out there in the interior designing world, that you have to compete with in terms of getting the right instructions, in terms of the commission for the property? Did you have that in mind, that you're going to be chased with competition out here?
I know it's very difficult, the industry. I know that there's huge amounts of competition, and I think where
Yeah,
I was really lucky is my confidence, because I've got such knowledge from all depths, whether it comes to the build or it comes to the design. I was really lucky that that confidence sung through. So I pulled up some really big projects early on, and from there I managed to get myself a portfolio. And the key is portfolio. It's, you can talk the talk, but it's actually walking the walk. It's being able to show that you can pull together not only the aesthetics and that side of things, but it's the attention to detail, to the implementation of the design. You need to show that you can follow it through with the detail right to the end, dressing.
of
And
course.
luckily all my projects have gone really well, so I found that the portfolio just built and built. And we've not always been that lucky in regards to, not all our clients want us to photograph our projects,
Okay,
because they're personal to the clients, and some of them are of some of them, they want to protect who they are. They don't want that sort of level of privacy invasion. So we've got to be very careful. So we don't always get to photograph our projects, but when we do, we make sure we show the depth that's gone into it, the thought process.
I mean, some of the works
And
that
I
I've
think
seen, that you
that's
go
really
out and
helped.
you actually find hand designed vases that you posted yesterday, for example.
Yeah,
It,
yeah,
this is the depth that people are looking for within their property, because obviously they're spending so much amount of money in terms of
yeah.
getting the right interior design. How do you make sure that that individual's money is put to the right place when coming to designing their property?
Well, it's again comes down to experience. It's understanding what the client wants out of the space. That's really, really important. Whether it be a developer who wants to stage it for dressing, you understand then their needs to give the wow factor. But actually, the product that you put in there, it needs to be of a certain cost, and you need to be conscious of those needs.
Of
Or it
course.
might be a family, and therefore the family wants to live in that space for the next 10 years or 15 years. You need to know that your design and then where you're spending your money is spent in a place that it will last them, that they're not going to suddenly go, hang on a minute, actually this I want to change in 2 years time. That's not going to work as an interior designer. They bring you in to design something that will stand the test of time, and that's really, really important. So where to spend the money will be in the products that we know will last them, that will give them the quality that they
Of
need.
course.
And also budget depends on what the client's budgets are.
I mean, do you, I'm sure this industry is such that when you do go in to these properties, a lot of the times the budget of the client does not match what they want, and possibly that might exceed their budget. So how do you come
Yeah.
to a negotiation of sort of getting those two things together and providing them the best solution for their property?
Yeah, well, that's again, it comes down to experience. It's managing and juggling their needs. And if they say, I want to spend 10 grand, but what they actually want is 50 grand, then straight away you've got a problem. And it's then explaining to them, okay, well, we can get you the look of what you want, but we can adjust this, this, and this, and get it in this way. And luckily, again, with experience, you can work out which suppliers can offer you those particular products. So you will suddenly go from handmade and bespoke upholstered items and think, actually no, we need to buy ready-made pieces off the shelf, but we'll still make sure they're of the same wow factor or the same needs that the client was asking for. And again, they may say, actually, do you know what, I do want what I want, but this is my budget. Okay, well then let's stage it, let's do it over a few years. Let's actually buy you your feature pieces that you love now within your budget, hold on to it, let's leave the rest, and then let's move on to the next. And again, with experience, you'll know what's important to start with. Like, you tell them to put the money into their flooring because that's something you can't change easily.
Of
So we'll
course.
make sure the flooring's right, or we'll make sure that, you know, the shell of the property or the room is right, and that you've actually bought the right, you know, if you're architecturally changing a door, you buy the right doors at that time that you know is going to last you, and the
Absolutely.
chairs and the rug that will come later. So you do need to make sure that you're designing for the needs and the client's buying for what they can afford. Yeah, because otherwise
Absolutely.
you'll start designing this amazing room and they can't actually buy everything that should be going in it.
Um, so in terms of your projects that you've done over the years, what would you want to call the best project that you've done? And that could be a sale, that could be a rental, or that could be a show home. What is it that you put into that property that gave it that wow factor?
Well, I have to say the best one I've done. So we're really lucky with our projects. We haven't had a bad project, and I have to say I think that's quite rare. So I'm really holding on to that, and I'm really excited that I can say that. But the best project will probably be where recently we've been designing for a lot of clients that don't live in the UK,
Okay.
and that can be quite difficult because
Yeah.
you're designing for them virtually. And funnily enough, that's why we were quite lucky in lockdown, because we had this experience with designing virtually and actually processing those designs without the client being able to feel them and see what they're going to get.
Yeah.
And so we had this client from abroad. We designed for them virtually. They ticked everything off. And when they came to see the property, they knew what it was in its shell. They hadn't seen the design
The
implemented.
finished product.
That's
Yeah.
quite nerve-wracking, right? So you're
Of
thinking, holy
course.
shit, these guys are coming over. They've come off the plane. They're in their car on the way over here. Us girls are running around like headless chickens doing the last dressing, making sure it's absolutely pristine. And our perfectionism came in on max. And these guys arrive, we've got champagne ready for them, we give it to them at the door as they arrive, and they loved every single thing. Not one thing got changed, not even the
Wow.
final dressing there where we did, like, you know, crystals that we had made. We had these amazing agate crystals in these stands, and they were on these bronze statued stands. They were
Yeah.
sensational, but we weren't sure if it was something they were going to go for, and they hadn't seen that in the designs. It was an extra. And we thought to ourselves, well, we'll put them in. If they don't like them, we can take them back. And they didn't change a thing. And that's definitely, I have to say, hands down, the best project.
And do you think right now, speaking about virtually designing right now, do you think that this is the way forward right now, for especially with interior designing? Because there, and you mentioned that you work with a lot of overseas clients where traveling is not
Yeah.
key right now. People cannot come into the country, and if they do come into the country, they have to stay into quarantine and all that kind of stuff. So, are you
Yeah.
sort of building your business in that sort of format that now you can do more virtual designs and get them approved by
Yeah.
the owners or the developers or the buyers who are going to move in?
Absolutely. I mean, it makes our life so much easier because it opens us up to the world. So why wouldn't you design in that way? I mean, it's not the best way I'd like to work. Not at all. I like to be able to present. I like them to
Absolutely.
feel what they're going to get, and I like
Yeah,
to show them what they're going to get. So
absolutely.
I will, of course, choose number one, that I can work with a client one-on-one. I don't mind virtually designing to a point and then presenting to them. But equally, there are loads of times where clients aren't able to come and see the final samples, in which case, not a problem. I think the nice thing is that we can offer both, and I think that's quite important.
And do you sometimes realize that when you're showing them some sort of upholstery or any sort of finishing within the property and doing that virtually, sometimes the colors don't look as to the eye as they would be in original format? I mean, do you get that a
Absolutely,
lot?
that's
Or,
yeah, we do, yeah, and that's the nice thing, is that they can trust us. Either the clients have worked with us, they actually know how we
okay,
work, and a lot of the time they don't really care, they just look at it at the end of the design. But we do have an issue where it's going from us to the client and it's going to look slightly different, in which case we will make sure we send them a sample board so that they can actually feel a sample board. It's not presented as nicely as we'd like, but sample boards you can make look pretty special. They can see the thought that's gone into it, and the main thing is that they see what it is. That's quite important.
of course.
So yeah, colours look completely different on computer to what they look
Yeah.
like in real life. But if you trust the designer, you know they've got it right. They're not going to put any clashes in.
And what also I wanted to ask you, that a lot of the interior designers, sometimes they have issues with completing the project.
Yeah.
It could be the fact that running out of budget, or possibly having different sort of terms, not coming to an agreement with the finish. How does one come about that, and how do you overcome?
I lost a bit of what you were saying there, but I got the gist of it. So again, it comes down to management. You've got to manage the project just as well as you've designed it. So it's
Of
really
course.
important that from the first off, from your design, you've had a budget. So you're picking pieces within the budget. No point picking things that are not going to be able to be afforded.
Yep.
And then once you know that they're within the budget, then you come up with a structure so that the client can pay. So say whether it be in 2 halves, whether it be in four halves, it doesn't matter how it's done, but you make sure that they then stick to those payment plans. Otherwise, what's the point? You could get halfway down the line and actually you're cut short, but that can damage your reputation, and you can't afford for that to happen. So we had it happen once, probably about 10 years ago, where we were designing the whole house and we were working through all of the rooms, and the client got to the end and sadly she wasn't able to continue, we accepted it, no problem at all. I mean, at the end of the day, our clients come first. It doesn't matter.
So
But
did
we
she end
learned
up
from
with
it.
half house done and half house not done?
Yeah, and it's such a shame. It breaks my heart. Like, oh my gosh, killed me. And that was about 10 years ago, and it will never happen again. Not because of the fact that it didn't
But
it
you've
didn't
built
bother
your
me.
business in a way that it
Yeah.
does not happen to you, get yourself protected and the clients protected as well.
Absolutely. That's important for the client, because you don't want that for the client. You don't want them to have a half-finished job and then they're
Of
going to sit
course.
there thinking, oh my gosh, look at what it could have been, and their
Of
design, and then
course.
they look at what
And
it
and
is.
and
It's
and,
just not
and her guests could walk in and they'd be like, why am I in two separate worlds out here?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want your name to that. So no, you've got to manage it right from the first off, 100%.
And also what I wanted to ask you is, from the time that you um, depending on the finish that you have to do, but
Mm.
from the time that you go and see a property, to when you're commissioned to do it, to when you finish it, how long is that process for an individual or a client to be ready and to say that, okay, I have to wait for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months till the property is ready? And how do you explain that to them in terms of, you have to wait if you want
Yeah.
us to do the job right?
Yeah, it's a really difficult balance, that, I have to say, because if you want something done right, you do have to wait. But at the same time, if we need to pull it out the bag because of a certain reason, then we will pull it out the bag. It's a case of actually understanding what the client wants initially. If it's a long-lasting home and there's particular products that we know are right for the space and we're doing the spec for them, then we will have to tell them they've got to wait. But as long as you're true to them at the beginning and you don't overpromise, then they understand that. From the beginning, you've told them a date. By the time you implement it, hopefully it's better than that date, within it, but better than that date, and you're impressing them. But if you promise them a date and you don't actually meet that date, then that's so damaging, and you can't ever afford to do that. And I think it is, again, it's just a case
And
of
have you ever
trusting
had that
them.
experience in your career so far?
No, I would never allow it. It would never
That's
happen.
that's good. That's good to know. So what's next in Jess Week's Interior? How are you planning to upscale your business and for the world to know that, look, we're here, we're better than other interior designers out there. Come and see our brand and see what we do and how we can design your house. So how are you planning your business to get it known worldwide?
So at the moment, what we're trying to do is we're going to be opening offices in London. So at the moment, like I said, we're Wiltshire based. We've got an office in Islington, but we want to open a showroom so that people can actually come in and see our products. We do a lot of own design products that you don't really see, because a lot of our clients, like I said, there are a certain clientele that don't like to have it photographed. We're also working with developers more at the moment. We're working on home staging, and the nice thing about that is you can show your work, you can photograph it without it being personal, but you can also show the value to it, the fact that the sales of properties are turning over quicker because of the aesthetics that we put in there. You're selling a lifestyle.
Of course.
That's going to help get us marketed quicker. We're also looking at a hotel deal at the moment, so working on commercial will obviously put our name out there quicker. And we've got a couple of projects coming up in Spain again. And again, I think just trying to get out abroad as much as we possibly can, the more we're going to be
To get
opening up
that
that
brand
market.
out there, for them to know that, look, we're here, come and choose us because we can deliver of what we say. So that's good to know about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Before I wrap up this conversation with you, Jess, I do this with all my guests that come on here, to share positive energy, advice for people out there that could be looking at setting up their career as an interior designer or something to do within the home staging industry. What positive advice would you like to share with them so that they can take that on board and say that if Jess Weeks can do it, then I can do it?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, it's anything's possible. You've just got to give it your absolute all. You never, ever, ever give up. You give it your all. Everyone has knocks, and then they think, oh, maybe
Absolutely.
it's not the right industry for me. But just whatever you do, don't give up. If you really believe that you can do it, then you can. And it's a case of getting yourself out there. I mean, a lot of people new to interior design will have to work for free for a while. You've got to build your portfolio. You've got to, luckily, I actually designed for some family at the beginning, and got my portfolio going that way. And that's a way to do it. Designing for friends and family that have got houses that you want on your portfolio. Design it for free. Make it fabulous for them. You're giving them a gift, and then you can photograph it and market it. It's a perfect way of
And
doing it.
that
And then also getting on
and that's
Instagram.
how you started your career in terms of designing your first house for
Yeah,
free, or
back in
was
the
that?
beginning. Yeah, I designed for free. Started absolutely nothing. Luckily, again, being in property, without a doubt, made my.
Sorry,
Sorry, yeah, carry on. No,
sorry.
you're
Go
okay.
ahead. You were
Carry on.
saying.
I was saying my family being in property massively helped because already that experience really helped. They supported. My mother was an interior designer, so she managed to go into a room and make it a home like that. I mean, she was incredible. She is incredible. She's retired now, but she is incredible. And I think just speaking to family members, friends, anyone you can really speak to them and say, do you need any work done? Do you need a sitting room doing? Let me help you. Set up trade accounts and use them to help your family and friends. Create a fabulous space, photograph it, market it, and you're winning. You're running.
That's amazing. But thank you so much for joining me today, sharing all that knowledge, what you've gained in these many years of doing this interior designing and how you started to where you are today. I wish you all the best for the future in terms of
Thank
getting
you.
commissioned on bigger and better projects in London and the world. So good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Super. Thank you so much for joining me.
Super. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. So that was Jess Weeks. I mean, if you're looking for an interior designer for your property, like she mentioned, from handmade to custom made, you know, items, upholsteries, interior finishes, absolutely amazing. You should check out her profile for when you have a project or you're finishing your own property. Do check her out. Thank you so much to Jess for coming on there and sharing all that positive advice. And thank you to all the viewers that tuned in today. It's a pleasure to have you on. Do tune in at 2:30 where I've got a property conversation with a property entrepreneur at 2:30. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.